It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice right here, right now. Thanks for joining with us today. I appreciate it. Those of you that are riding with us along at Patriot FB, good morning, boys and girls. How you doing? For those of you that are joining us on our website, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I love it when I see folks streaming the show live, and I can see some of you out there in Baltimore, Lincoln, I guess that's Nebraska, West Plains, of course, Fort Walton Beach, so some other locations. I'm not quite sure where Fort Walton Beach is. I thought that was Florida, but maybe I'm wrong. Guess I have to educate myself on geography. Hey, thanks for joining with us. You know, we try to keep folks, you know, awake and aware of what's going on in our country, and there's some really good patriots out there. And I see as things kind of degrade politically, I keep meeting them and seeing them. Yesterday, I did an interview with General Vallely, and I recorded it, so I'll be playing it later. He couldn't do a live event, but I'll be broadcasting that for you guys shortly. And you know, he's an impressive man, and I think his heart is in the right place, and he is got a program out there to put forth a no confidence vote in Congress. Which is, you know, there's no basically constitutional authority for something like a no confidence vote, but you'll learn more about it in that interview. I'm going to hopefully have it up before the weekend, but very interesting dialogue and conversation. Very interesting man. For the record, by the way, I'll be interviewing Colonel Riley, who is he's the driver of Operation Spring. For those of you that are not aware of Operation Spring, I would encourage you to, there's links up on our website where you can go and learn more about it. And, boy, the response that he's been getting there is just stunning. The number of people that are planning to go to that, it's in April, and essentially demand that we get our government back, folks. So, listen, if you'd like to call the show live, you're more than welcome to do that. I'll give you the phone number. It is area code 417-204-5141. That's 417-204-5141. And if you call in, we can take your call on the air. And I'm having some trouble with this phone line, but if you'll just bear with the little buzz or hum in the back of it until we get our other phone line system in, you're welcome to call. If you'd like to listen to our Listen line, which enables you to listen to America's Voice Now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can call this number. It's area code 415-325-0725. It's 415-325-0725. If you call in 8 to 9:45 Central, you can listen live. If you call in after that, then basically you can just catch the show. It starts immediately as soon as you call in. And it's great if you're calling in from your NSA-sponsored personal tracking device, and you've got unlimited minutes there. You can certainly listen to the show for free, and you can do it while you're traveling, while you're on a trip somewhere, wherever the case may be. So we appreciate everybody's everybody who listens to the program in whatever various methodology you use. We post everything up on YouTube, as you know, as well. So. I want to thank the guys over at Big Country 99. Rick and Rocky are a couple of really good guys up there. And Big Country 99 is a station here in South Central Missouri that carries our program every night. And, they are a couple of guys that, Big Country 99 is like it sounds. It's a country station, or kind of, it's country, but they mix other rock and stuff in with it. But great format. But, it's a country station. And, Ricky V is a guy who, said, listen, I feel it's important enough that this message get out, that I want you on the air there. And so after midnight, which is when the show goes on, it runs from midnight to 2 a.m., everybody in South Central Missouri, we take off our bill caps and we take off our cowboy hats and we put on these Tri-Corner Patriot hats. And we go out there to save our country. So I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with the station that's willing to do that. And, because it's a format change for them. And their listenership, of course, is got to go through the change of going from music to talk radio. And, I'm not exactly the guy who brings cheer into your home. I mean, I think the most common feedback response I get from people is that after I listen to you, I'm mad for the rest of the day, or I'm mad I can't go to sleep because I'm mad. I have a tendency to, I guess, be polarizing in the sense that, some of the stuff I impart into my message is that, there's a lot of things that are going on out there that are really bad and wrong. And it's our job, and it's our, we have a duty to fix it and do something about it and do it right now. But I think that's probably one of the most consistent responses I get. Now, I take that as a compliment, and I don't think they mean it in a negative sense. Some people would say, my goodness, what a legacy, right? You make people around you mad. But the truth is, that's it. And I'm not trying to do that. I'm just exposing what the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda won't talk to you about. Or I link these stories to, that I talk about from mainstream media. But what I do is I give you a different viewpoint of it. I express to you what they're not telling you, which quite honestly is, in my opinion, it's more important than what they are actually telling you. That's the really important part here. What they're telling you and what they're not telling you, is, or I should say what they're not telling you is more important almost than what they are actually telling you, because they're feeding you a propagandic message. And we have an obligation and a necessity to be critical thinkers, so and to think outside the box and be cognizant when we're being misled, right? So that, it's like we go into it with our eyes open and we understand that we're being manipulated. It's a lot harder to do it when we approach it from that perspective. So, hey, listen, for the record, there is a program on Saturday at the Senior Center in Thayer. Now, this is the Ozark Self-Reliant Living University. It's put on by Mike Slack, who's a friend of mine. Mike is he's just an outstanding patriot is what he is. And Mike puts this program on. He used to do it with his wife, who recently passed, and bless her. Mike and Deb put this thing on for years. And basically, it's a disaster preparedness seminar on the Ozark Self-Reliant Living University, where they do these classes for free. And basically, these classes cover things like how to be a prepper, how to Deb used to do all kinds of things like how to can and how to make cheese. And I mean, just good hometown skills, not prepping like manic, militaristic and all of that. Just good, solid skills that our grandmothers used to teach us, right? So I'll be speaking there as well. And if you'd like to come on down, you're welcome to. Brian Haas will be there from Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. Brian is a friend of ours. And by the way, you can go to his website. It's Ozark Survival Gear. I actually built that website for him. And he'll be talking about prepping 101 and what kind of stuff you should put in a bug-out bag. John Price, he's the guy who teaches ham radio. And he'll be talking about the ham radio club and the radio communication and how you can utilize it during emergencies and how you can get the training and the skill you need, even if you don't want to get a license, how you can get licensed. But if you don't want to get a license, at least to know how to use them. Dave Lohr of the Kosh Trading Post will be there to demonstrate some survival techniques in primitive conditions and how to make your own bow and arrows, how to trap small game and survive without a shelter. Some basic stuff like that. Oregon County Ambulance Paramedic will be there to discuss what to do for emergency medical care when there's no doctor available. And these are things, folks, that you can apply every day in life. You don't necessarily have to be in a critical emergency situation, because it may not be an emergency until suddenly you've slipped and fallen you're out hiking, you're out camping, and something happens, and you're an hour away from help. What do? I mean, you can't. You got to resolve that problem first, right? So these are great skills to know and great things to know, and I strongly encourage you to go there. The seminar is totally free, folks. It doesn't cost you a dime. Now, they'll take some donations if you want them, throw them there. But lunch is available. It's $4 a head and includes drinks and desserts. And there are experts there who will, and there are also a couple of vendors that will be there and stuff like that. So I really encourage you, if you can get to Thayer, to go to this thing. It's called the Disaster Preparedness Seminar, and it'll be at the Senior Center in Thayer from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Saturday. Now, I'll be there speaking as well. And I'll cover a couple of different issues, but one of the things they wanted me to talk about was what's the right firearms system to have for home defense and preparedness. And as an ex-firearms dealer, and of course you all know I can't deal in firearms anymore or even own one, but I certainly cannot forget what I got up here. And, I'm a gunsmith, or was a gunsmith, and I know an awful lot about them. And I used to do tactical training and so forth and so on. So I'm in a great position to do that. The technology doesn't change that much. And, there may be a new model or two out there, but for all intents and purposes, I'm going to stick to what are the right devices you need, what carbines, what shotguns, what calibers you want, what are the basic tools that you need in every home, at least in every home. And then if you've got multiple trained people within the same home, how do you branch out? So, and I'll also talk a little bit about some of our other issues. I'm going to try to introduce the PAC down there and get some folks excited about that. Anyway, please join us if you can. It is at the Thayer Senior Center, and it's the Disaster Preparedness Seminar on the Ozark Self-Reliant Living University. It's sponsored by Mike Slack. And phone number, if you want more information, is area code 417-264-2435. That's 417-264-2435. Okay. Thank you to our one of our other sponsors and friends, the Battery Station. Kevin is a great guy, and he's a real friend of mine. He offers a co-op program, by the way, if you're a local in our area and you want to participate in that. Basically, our co-op program, which is available only to America's Voice Now listeners, it enables you to be able to purchase bulk food at wholesale prices. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a free service that costs you nothing, and Kevin makes nothing on this. Now, basically, he and I, sat down one evening and we said, what can we do to help our own community? And one of the things we came up with is we can help people obtain bulk food. And when we talk about bulk food, we're talking about, a 50-pound bag of oatmeal, right? A 50-pound bag of rice, a 25-pound bag of salt, or a 50-pound bag of sugar, or 25-pound. This is all bulk stuff. And the cool part is Kevin gets it at wholesale and sells it to you at wholesale. He just passes it through. That is a really honorable thing for a guy to do, who's in business, by the way, but doesn't seek to make a profit on this at all. And so we've had folks that have gone there, and we have folks that literally go there about once a month. The orders only get placed once a month. And so we've had folks that have gone there and now are going consistently every month and placing orders. And the reason they do is because they come back and say, you know what? I sat down and I took the total collection of the stuff that I bought. The rice and so forth, and the oatmeal and the grain and wheat berries, and they have wheat berries you can grind your own, or you can buy flour, whatever you want. And they compared the price against what they would have paid had they gone to one of the local stores. I had one guy tell me it was actually up to 50% that he was saving. In other words, his total food cost savings was about 50%. Another person told me it was well in excess of 35%. And I guess it depends on where you shop and what kind of food you buy. But basically, the idea is if you can save a third, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say it's the lower end of that scale. If you can save a third on your phone bill, your food bill, wouldn't that be worth it? And honestly, look, if you think we're wearing tinfoil hats here, and if we're wrong. And the world turns around tomorrow morning, and unicorns land in everyone's front yard, and they burst flatulence out as rainbows. You can always eat it, folks. You didn't lose anything. And if inflation continues at the current rate that it is, you're actually saving even more. Because, the rice that you bought today, which you bought for $1 today, will cost you $1.20 tomorrow. And so, if it lasts you 6 months and the price has gone up 20 cents, boom, you're ahead of the game even more. So wouldn't it be nice to buy that rice for 75 cents when the price is $1 for everybody else? And knowing that when the price is $1.25 for everybody else, you still got yours at 75 cents. Hello? I don't know. You can get to the battery station by going to 303 Washington Avenue. We do not do this over the phone. This is an in-person kind of order. We don't ship. So Kevin ships everything, but he doesn't ship this just because it's bulk and it's big and it's heavy. If you want to participate in this, for those folks who are long-term listeners all over the rest of the country, I'm sorry, but we can't ship this stuff. So the upshot is, if you're local and you're in our region and you want to participate, go to the battery station. It's at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains. The phone number there is 417-257-7799 if you need directions or anything else. When you go there, go inside and just say, I came because Mike Evans from America's Voice told me to come in here, and he asked me to ask you for the co-op catalog. That's all you got to say, the co-op catalog. They know exactly, everybody who works there knows exactly what it is. They'll hand it to you. It's a book, a binder. You pull out an order form, you go through it, you order your stuff. If it's a big order, and it's going to be a couple of $100 or something, they might ask you for a deposit. If it's just going to be something small, they probably won't. They'll ask you for your phone number and an email address so that when the order comes in, all they do is call you up and say, your stuff is here, come and get it. Ladies and gentlemen, is that not a patriotic, wonderful, community-oriented service to do? I mean, man, I'm touched every time I think about how he does that for folks. He doesn't make a dime at it. And let me tell you something. When these orders come in, his retail store is packed, floor to ceiling, with bags and bins and boxes of stuff that people have to come and get. So please don't delay. When he calls you, come and get your junk. But, I mean, I walk in there and the hallway is jammed with bags piled floor to ceiling, 50-pound bags of grain and rice and stuff like that, and wheat and sugar and salt and flour and stuff like that. And he does all of this just as a community service. So if there's no other reason you would go to shop at the battery station, that's one right there. And he's got an awesome store. You walk in there, you can spend an hour and a half in there and not see all of it. And it's tiny. I mean, the part that the consumer can get to, it's very small, but you could stand there for an hour and a half and not see everything. It's like a little wonderland if you're a prepper or a guy who likes batteries and flashlights and gadgets and tactical gear and clothing, and they have ammo, they have optics, they've got accessories for weapons, they've got, the sky's the limit. They got survival gear and knives and, it's just the sky's the limit, man. Great place. And I may bump into you there. I go in there all the time just to go in and say hi and have a cup of coffee. All right. You can also get to their website at batterystation.com. Thanks to the guys over at Pizza Hut. Bruce over there is the manager, and he's a staunch supporter of our program. And, if there's a reason for you to be in West Plains and you want to have a great lunch, go over there to the Pizza Hut and get yourself a salad and pizza bar. I don't know why I always say soup and salad. They don't have soup. But they do have pizza, and they do have a salad bar that's great. I go in there all the time and have a salad and a slice of pizza, and it's also awesome. By the way, on Tuesdays, it's family night, so kids under I think it's 13 or something or 12 eat free. And what the heck? It's a great opportunity, and you're supporting a good cause, and you're supporting AVN by doing that. Make sure that when you go in, you tell your server or Bruce. You can ask for Bruce, the manager, and just tell him, you know what? I came in because I heard about you on from Mike at America's Voice Now, and I just want to thank you for supporting his program. Jason Henry, very good attorney. I'm not a big fan of attorneys. I don't actually like attorneys very much. But Jason's a unique guy. Does a lot of criminal work, does some civil work as well for, divorces and stuff like that, and custody and things like that. But his specialty is criminal, state and federal criminal cases. And he does personal injury as well. His office does personal injury for automobile accidents and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, this is a guy I've seen really go to the mat for criminal cases. And when that person has been injured and wronged. And I got to tell you, and it's not easy to find a federal attorney. If you've got he specializes in felon in possession gun cases, which out here in the Ozarks happens all the time. Somebody got a felony 25 years ago, and they think everybody else forgot about it, and then they're walking around in the woods with a squirrel gun, and the next thing you know, they're facing 3 to 5 years in federal prison for a squirrel gun. Really. This is a guy who, got caught with a dime bag of weed back when he was 18 years old, and now, he's 45 years old. He's got a family, kids, a good job. He hasn't even gotten a speeding ticket in 30 years. And suddenly, he's looking at federal jail time because he got caught with a shotgun going and taking his kid to teach him how to hunt. It's pathetic. So he handles those cases, and he specializes in those. And, federal courts and the federal rules are very, very harsh on felon in possession. So... there's no public defender that's going to really give you the time of day on stuff like that. He also does DUI and other stuff, so give him a call. His number is 417-256-4100. It's 417-256-4100. He's on the square in West Plains, and he's at number 10 Court Square, right across the street from the courthouse. He can make a paper airplane out of your legal brief and fly it over to the courthouse. He's that close. So... make sure that while you're on the square, you go in to get your hair cut over at Wits End Classic Barbershop. Jason's a friend of mine, does a great job cutting my hair, and he's a good young patriotic man. And so do yourself a favor, get yourself a haircut over there. They do a hot lather shave with a towel and the whole 9 yards with a straight razor, and it's like stepping into a barbershop from the 40s or 50s when you go in there. They even have a checkerboard there and a chessboard. And while you're there, after you've had your hair cut or while you're waiting to get one, you can step into the back to the Patriot Cigar and Tobacco Shop, and you can grab yourself a cigar, some pipe tobacco. They have pipes. They got literally hundreds of pipes in there. I've never seen so many pipes in my life. And every accessory, lighters and flasks and humidors to store your cigars, and all kinds of stuff in there. And they got a little bit of a lounge in there, so you can sit in there and chat with some other guys that are in there having a cigar. It's all the time. It's an amazing place. So you can like both of those places on Facebook, by the way. Wits End Classic Barbershop is one, and the other is Patriot Cigar and Tobacco Shop. And if you like them on Facebook, there's a discount on Patriot Cigar and Tobacco. Make sure that you do that. We're going to take a quick break. I didn't even get to our first topic, which is the nationwide CEOs betray their own nation. I'm so disgusted when I see what's going on in our country, and I see the level of betrayal that is really fostered upon us from every different facet of the diamond. I'll cover it because I'll wrap the next 2 or 3 segments, and we're going to talk about Boehner and what a disgrace he is to our country and our Constitution. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. All right. I apologize, by the way, for sounding so hoarse. As many of you know, if you're long-time listeners, I got bitten by that flu over the course of the weekend. Man, it knocked me for a loop. I only get sick about once every 2 years, but when I do, it's like it gives it to me like I really deserve it. And I lost my voice, and I'm stuffy and so forth. So just bear with me. In a couple of days, I'll be feeling back to snuff. I'm a little out of sorts from it, too, because I took NyQuil, which I don't ordinarily do. I hate that stuff. But I needed to sleep so bad just to get rid of this. And that leaves me feeling like like disoriented and out of commission for 2 or 3 days. It's almost like, you know, when you were younger, you went out and you went on a drinking binge with a couple of buddies for a day or two, and you know it just takes you a day or two to recover from that. I don't drink, but I mean once in a great while I'll have a beer or something. But same feeling, kind of like beat up. All right, so you know I was originally going to talk this morning about the nationwide onslaught against our freedom by these CEOs. You know, there's an article out on the Hill about the CEOs who've given Washington their 2014 wish list. And what really, if you forgive the phrase, what really pisses me off about this is that this is really a betrayal of our nation. Because these are the people who actually got their start here in this country. I mean, they started a business. Right? Many of these businesses, no matter how big and no matter how glamorous they are, they started in, you know, a cubicle somewhere, a diner at a table in somebody's garage. And when I look at that, they got their start here because of free enterprise and the concepts of capitalism, and at a time when our government wasn't, you know, pandering to the wishes of the corporatocracy and becoming a fascist nation. And they've taken that success and they've now turned it on us because they're seeking immigration and amnesty for what they classify to be 12 million illegals, and you and I both know that number is double. And it offers chain migration, which allows... So, you know, I'm here, so now I can bring my sister and my brother and my mother and my father and my little brother over. So the number isn't really 25 million even. It's going to be 50 million. And, you know, they pose this as CEOs give Washington their 2014 wish list. You know what really burns me about that? Their wish list is to gut the workforce of America. To gut the workforce of America in favor of low-cost labor. That's all it really is about. Imported and given access to our most precious jewels and resources. Our nation itself. Our history, our culture, our treasure, and in some cases our blood. It really bothers me. Because these companies are successful because of what this republic has given them and the workers who put in their time and you know, did their best to help build the company. Yes, for personal profit because they needed a paycheck. But at the same point in time, these companies are successful because of the great people that they had in as employees. That's why they have become great. That's why they're national names and household names. That's why they have multi-billion-dollar annual gross income. In many cases, net income. But the truth is, now they're willing to sell us out in favor of an enhanced quarterly profit report. That's what this is about, ladies and gentlemen. These people don't care about the immigrants themselves. This isn't some kind of an altruistic thing like, hey, we got to do this to save these people. They're doing this because it enhances their bottom line. There's 3 articles out there. I'm so mad about it. One of them is, well, I told you about the one from The Hill, and I'll incorporate it in the comment section at the bottom of the YouTube thing. But there's another one here from Arne Sorensen. He's the president and the CEO of Marriott International. And his comment is, his title of his article is, Congress should keep this resolution. And the resolution he's talking about is passing an immigration bill that offers many common sense solutions to the problems that plague our current system and would be a boon to the economy. It's not going to be a boon to the economy. It's going to be a boon to the economy of the 50 million illegals who are here. But it's not going to be a boon to the economy of the 315 of us that are here already. It's a boon to your economy, maybe, your bottom line, because you run Marriott hotels. And you can hire cheap immigrant labor who's willing to come over here and work for pennies on the dollar. You tell me you can't get employees. That's a lie. How is it that they posted a job the other day that there were 6 people? 6 people. 1,500 people. There were 6 jobs, and 1,500 people applied for those. The truth is, what you're seeking is you're seeking people who will come in here and not demand, anything above minimum wage. Because when they come here from another country, and Mexico, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is only half of our immigration issue. For the record, only half of our immigration problem is Mexico and South America. The other half is overstayed visas from Europe, Asia, the Pacific. And when people come here who, and I'm not trying to sound, high and mighty about this, but when they come here, they are accustomed, from where they came from, they lived in 6, 7, 8 people in a cinder block shack with a tin roof, no running water. Maybe they got electricity. They're comfortable to come here and say, wow, I can make more in a month than I made in a year at home. And I can send a bunch of it back. And we don't mind 8 of us sharing a 2-bedroom apartment. Because 8 of us were sharing 1 room before. And we don't mind commuting to work. 6 of us piling into a 15-year-old car. Because where we came from, we didn't have a car. Now, there's 2 sides to that. One is that's a statement for America, and it's something to give us pause to think about. Why do we insist on living so high and mighty? But at the same point in time, it doesn't mean that we should completely wholesale take our country and reduce it to the lowest common denominator in order to meet the profit margin for Arne Sorensen and Marriott International, or the AT&T CEO, who sent on January 15th a letter to the president, and he's pushing immigration. Why? Randall Stevenson's letter to the White House. Let me tell you, Mr. Stevenson, you're not pushing immigration for the benefit of America. You're pushing immigration because these same people are going to be able to use your AT&T phones and your AT&T long-distance lines to dial back home. And you're going to get low-income workers who will be happy to sit there and work away in a cubicle somewhere. This has nothing to do with what's good for America. This has everything to do with what's good for AT&T. Where the hell do you get off? To you, they're food, crops, livestock, to be bought, sold, traded. And if their usefulness has outlived itself, then you'll just cull them from the herd. How do I know that to be true? Because you're culling us from the herd right now. Yeah, the loyal Americans that made AT&T what it is today, that made Marriott Hotels what it is today. The same Americans who, lived through your growth pattern and put forth their best efforts to grow that company and make it the titan that it is. Now you're willing to cast us aside in favor of the next shiny new toy. I don't like it. And it's not right. It's not fair. It's not ethical. It's not moral. And it's a lie. Because you couch this as if you are trying to claim that this is going to benefit the nation as a whole. And you're a liar. And if there's one thing I hate in my life, it's a liar. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and all 15,000 of your members and the entire Council on Foreign Relations and all of your 40,000 members, you're all liars. You market your personal business agenda to the nation as if it's an improvement for us. Where's the improvement? You're not giving us jobs, and let's be honest, none of you pay any doggone taxes. None of you. With all the trillions of dollars of gross domestic product in the United States today, none of you are paying taxes. How do I know that? Well, I'm going to go to usdebtclock.org and I'm going to tell you. U.S. personal income tax revenue for the year, so far this year, $2.83 trillion. You know what the corporate tax has been? $275 billion. What? That's right. 10% of the revenue that is generated by this government is generated from corporate taxes. That means the other 90% is borne by the citizens. Well, let me tell you something. You're not paying taxes. Excuse me. You're not paying taxes because you're shipping our jobs and our money and your corporate assets offshore, number one, in an effort to evade taxation, which is shameful in and of itself. But then to have the unmitigated gall to turn around and claim that this is for the benefit of America so that you can improve the economy, let me tell you something. The economy is not going to improve if you're giving all the jobs to a bunch of newly minted illegal citizens. How is that going to improve our economy? It improves their economy. Well, they'll pay taxes. How about you pay some taxes? Go look at these corporate titans. The most obvious example I can give you, GE. They filed a 59,000-page tax return in 2010, and you know what they paid? Zero. Ladies and gentlemen, not one red penny in U.S. tax. On what, $12 billion in sales? You got to be kidding me. If these corporations actually wanted to do something, they would stop scamming and manipulating Congress to pass loophole legislation that allows them to get away paying less than 10% of the total tax burden. It's ridiculous. Well, it'll improve the economy because all these illegals will start to pay taxes. Let me tell you something. The resources they eat up more than equate the taxes they're going to pay. And we haven't even touched on the concept of the culture and the concept of the manipulation of our society to bend our country to what they know, which we don't want. And honestly, if it was so doggone great, why'd they leave their place to come here? If their political situation and what they knew at home was so wonderful, if the socialism works so great where they're from, then why don't they stay there? The whole thing is a joke. And anybody who doesn't see through it is not looking at it with critically thinking eyes, number one, nor are they looking at it with a true, the true conceptual intent of understanding what this is really motivated by. The merger of corporations and governments is called fascism. And if you think that that's some kind of a fantastical future that won't occur, you're ignoring all of known history. You know what General Vallely said to me yesterday? People think it can't happen here. It can happen here. How does he know? Well, the guy is a general. He's retired, which means he's seen a lot of time in the military, and he's seen a lot of time overseas where he watched countries fall where they didn't think it could happen either. Not only can it happen here, it's happening. It's already happened. It's already here. Any argument to the contrary is a lie. I'm tired of corporations selling us down the river for a rosy bottom line. When you guys are raking the money in hand over fist. I mean, I get it. You have an obligation to your investors. Okay. But it shouldn't come at the cost of the country that made you great. Because ultimately, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. When the economy does tank, all those consumers who you're counting on to continue to drive the revenue for you won't have the revenue to spend. So it's all for short-term gain. There's no long-term mentality here. That's the problem. The entire nation of America has fallen into this concept that I don't care about tomorrow. I just need to know what's in it for me today and maybe, before nightfall. And it's destroying us. All right. I got to talk about Boehner before we wrap this segment up. I got 6 minutes left. He put a post up on his Facebook page today that really burned my shorts. He's got two pictures there. One of President Obama and one of him, left and right. And on the left side, it says President Obama has his pen in his phone. Because Obama said, I'm not waiting for Congress. I have a pen and I have a phone, and I'm going to pass executive orders to do what I want to do. Which, right off the bat, ought to be enough for Congress to go in there and have him arrested. Boehner, on the other hand, is sitting there holding up a pocket constitution, which he obviously hasn't cracked since grade school. And he says, but we have the Constitution. His comment is, President Obama says he has a pen and a phone he can use to bypass Congress. Pens and phones are nice, but we have the Constitution. Boehner, you are a reprehensible piece of garbage. You are a traitor to the nation, your own party, and the people of this great country. I couldn't take it. I commented. I had to. I said, oh, please, don't even go there and sully that document with your treasonous breath. 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate, 9 on SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, and about 100 in the executive. Less than 700 traitors who betray everything that document ever stood for. The lot of you aren't worth the dried ink droplets left upon the tip of the quill that signed it. For the record, folks, the Constitution is only a piece of paper and cannot enforce itself. That part is up to all of you. I read it 2 or 3 more times, and my blood started to curdle, and I actually commented a second time because I was so mad. I mean, for the record, by the way, there are 3,821 people who have commented. This thing only made it up there a couple hours ago. 16 hours ago, I think it made it up there. 18 hours ago. There are 4,113 responses, or likes, I should say. Likes. How many? Look at that. Sycophantically, 4,113 people put a thumbs up to that traitorous statement. What? Because he says, I like the Constitution? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? To be honest with you, virtually every comment here is negative. What's taking you so long to do something, she says. Appoint a special committee to investigate Benghazi already. Impeach Eric Holder for lying to Congress about the Fast and Furious. With all due respect, sir, the Constitution is apparently only as good as your willingness to stand up, to hold it up. Over and over and over and over and over. Every one of them is. Then start enforcing it. Worst speaker ever. The debt is out of control. Oh, wait, there's $3 million to stop gay marriage. Jobs, jobs, jobs. There's not a single positive comment in here. This guy says, when are you going to start abiding by the Constitution? Another guy says, you haven't done anything to stop this guy. The Tea Party has voiced their displeasure. Grow a spine. Another one says, then use it. Impeach him. And read the comments on this post. The people of the country are tired of your words and no action, Mr. Speaker. This guy says, does no good to hold that Constitution in your hand. Use it. Abide by it. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, there isn't a single member of Congress that is qualified to remain in office. Now, I got to tell you, I hear people say to me, stop, you can't say that. What about Trey Gowdy? What about Mike Lee? What about Ted Cruz? Here's the problem. And I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with any of those guys. But you can't take 435 and single out 5 and say, or 535 if you count the Senate together with the House, and say, I'm going to single 5 out for salvage. And the other 530, we're going to tar and feather. And send into exile. You can't. But, you know, it's beyond the salvation of we're beyond the point where we can do this politically, folks. That's why I introduced that thing called the pact, because every one of these pieces of garbage ought to be run out on the rail. All right. Make sure that you see our friends over at Jason Henry Law Offices at 10 Court Square, 417-256-4100. Federal and state criminal law, and does personal injury as well. Patriot Cigar Bar at 2 Court Square in West Plains, 417-257-1776. Also, Wits End Classic Barbershop at right on the Court Square as well. Pizza Hut over on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. Go there and get yourself a good lunch. And then our friends over at Battery Station at batterystation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, I'm going to tackle our other 2 topics, which is the House sells out. $1.1 trillion budget. And again, they shafted our military's pensions. I'm telling you, folks, these people are all operating in blatant, open tyranny and treason. And it's time that we held them accountable. Our last topic this morning, after we get off our second segment, our fourth segment, will be Operation American Spring. Will it work? Is this it? I fear we're out of time. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. If you're just joining us, we're in our third segment of the morning. I apologize for being a little hoarse. I sound like the 12-year-old boy whose voice keeps changing. I had that flu and it's just beat me up. Guys, there's two articles that are connected to this topic here, which is that the House has sold us out again. $1.1 trillion budget that they passed. And again, they shafted the military for their pensions. You're going to try and tell me out of $1.1 trillion, you guys cannot find the money to keep the promise that we made to our military men and women who have spent the better part of their adult working lives earning a pension, which you promised, we promised. And they earned it while sleeping in deserts and mucking their way through swamps and putting their lives on the line, eating crappy food, sleeping in cots and on the ground. And you lying 2-bit carpetbagging garbage. You sleep in a $10,000 bed. You wear $1,500 to $2,500 suits. You're wearing a pair of shoes that cost more than most of these military people make in a month. You make me sick. Meanwhile, the headline is China's treasury holdings climb to a record of $1.317 trillion. And Japan with 1.186. These guys are passing a $1.1 trillion budget with a deficit, a projected deficit at the end of the year of, what, $750 billion. They shafted the military pensions again. But get this, they increased the spending for the NSA, which has a black budget of $52 billion. $52 billion on secret projects nobody's accountable for. They increased the budget of the FBI, which is doing the NSA's dirty work domestically. And they increased the budget of Border Patrol, which... And this is no knock on the guys on the border, but it is a knock on their executive management. They're not doing their job. The guys in the field are prohibited from doing their job by a traitorous 2-bit illegal alien who happens to be sitting in the throne. And the guys on the border are actually not able to do their job. But they got a budget increase. Meanwhile, I saw a guy last night on Megyn Kelly's show. He was from the IAVA, which is the Iraq Afghanistan Veterans Association. And my son, as a veteran from Iraq, I get their magazine, and you know. The example he gave was that and I've forgotten the actual rank of the individual, but it wasn't a high rank. It was like a sergeant or something, or a colonel. A corporal or something. But over the course of his entire retirement, you're talking about an $85,000 hit. Now, you know, $85,000 ain't nothing when you're making $195,000 a year, plus another $250,000 in bennies and freebies and perks. Not to mention probably another $500,000 a year in government paid for travel and all of these junkets that you just happen to get to bring your wife or your girlfriend on. I mean, your secretary. The Border Patrol is constitutionally mandated. That's one of the 26 enumerated powers given to the federal government, and they won't do that one. But yet they're usurping power to do everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't get more upside down than that. These House members, and by the way, for the record, so you know, none of them are free of guilt. Only 65 Republicans voted against it, and 3 Democrats. 359 of these people from both parties acted like two-bit carpetbagging scum. No matter how fine their suits, their cars, their homes, no matter how fancy their words, they're no different than the exploitive carpetbaggers post-Civil War. If you don't remember the betrayal of what they did to this nation after the Civil War, go look it up again. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to call these people fellow Americans. You know what they said to the military? I don't know who's responsible for the quote, but we have until 2015 to fix that. So why did you have it in the budget if you plan on fixing it anyway? And the truth is, we know it's an empty promise because we've been getting promises from this Congress, this White House, this Supreme Court for generations now. And not a lick of it has ever come to pass. I want to take a rape shower because I feel slimy and dirty after hearing these people talk. They sit there and they lie to a camera. They know they're lying. They're gonna walk away from there and they're gonna go get in their chauffeur-driven car. They're gonna go back to their little Georgetown highly secured pad, paid for by the blood of Americans, the lifeblood. They're going to check their stocks, which they bought because they had inside information, which happened to be doing fairly well. Yeah, they just gave themselves a break from, being blocked from using insider trader information that the rest of us could go to prison for using. Yeah, that little tidbit. 64 Republicans and 3 Democrats opposed the betrayal of our promise to our military families. The rest of them ought to be tarred and feathered and run out on a rail. Exiled from political life. Maybe the country. I got to tell you, I am so disgusted with the behavior of these people. Their constant pushing the blame off on somebody else because they don't want to be responsible. Have you ever noticed that when there's a vote that has to be taken that is going to raise ire, you know what they do? They go to a voice vote. And so you know what a voice vote is. It's not accountable. There's no track record of who voted for what. When these traitors, treasonists, passed or renewed the bill on not unidentifiable firearms. I can't think of the word. Anyway, it was the plastic gun bill. They took a voice vote because these Republicans who classify themselves as Second Amendment supporters and all that nonsense crap, they didn't want to be held accountable for the vote they took. So they did it by voice vote. First of all, how is that even accountable? Well, it sounds like there were more A's than nays. Well, you know, to my trained ear, number one. Number two, it strips and robs the electorate of knowing how their elected representative, their alleged representative, voted. That's criminal in and of itself. If you allegedly represent us, then we have a right to know how you represented us, don't we? This entire national government has completely and utterly capitulated any pretense at following a rule of law, a constitution, following the basic tenets of jurisprudence, the basic tenets of common law, the basic tenets of biblical law. I mean, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal. Well, you're stealing from us. You're stealing from our children, including our grandchildren and their grandchildren. You lie to us pathologically. I mean, there is nothing that comes out of their mouths that is the truth. Nothing. Not a single word. If these people came up and said to you, it's daylight outside, you'd have to go to the window and pull back the curtain just to check. Their lying is clinically pathological. And it's not just the federal government, ladies and gentlemen. It's the House. It's the state assemblies as well. You know, I saw an article the other day from a guy, and he was talking about how the states have abdicated their states' rights and saying that the states should rise up. And one of the arguments for the Article 5 amendments is the states assemblies will make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. And this guy's argument was extraordinarily astute. You know what he said? If those people really were doing their jobs and they were true guardians of the Constitution, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And he's right. We wouldn't be having this discussion because we wouldn't be trying to figure out how to reestablish the 10th Amendment, nor would we be trying to determine how can we hold back the onslaught, the tidal wave of government intrusion, oppression, and fascist dictatorship that's enveloping our nation like the Blob from the old 60s movie. If our state assemblies had brass, had courage, had conviction, had spines, they would have voted to make their states completely sovereign from things like the NSA and the NDAA and all these excessive regulations from the EPA and the FAA and the FCC and every other doggone agency out there. How dare they claim the moral high ground? They're at much as fault. They're as much at fault as the people in Washington. And for a lot of the same reasons. It's not federal alone. Your states have capitulated. And don't even get me started on the churches, which have betrayed us. For a 501c3, 30 pieces of silver. This studio is in a church. Churches in this country should be ashamed of themselves. And boy, are they going to have a lot to answer for in the next life. Accept their 30 pieces of silver to sit there and betray their constituents, God's constituents. And I don't care what political or dogmatic religious division you are. I don't care whether you're a Baptist or a Lutheran, or whether you're a Methodist or you're a Catholic, or whether you're a Jew or a Muslim. This country's religious leaders have failed us. Well, we don't speak up because we're prohibited from doing so by our 501c3 tax exemption. Then give it up. If you really feel that your 501c3 exemption precludes you from doing the right job for your congregation, from teaching your flock the truth, then you have a moral obligation to abandon it. No, that's not what you really believe. What you really believe is we don't want to go there. So we use our 501c3 exemption as a handy excuse to not have to be controversial. And that hypocrisy makes me sick. I am tired of hypocrites and liars and thieves and cutthroats and carpetbaggers. I am just disgusted by the people who think that they can just ignore their moral and ethical right and duty, violate their oaths, and mark my words, I'm not just talking about Congress here. Yeah, they take an oath of office. Yeah, these generals who are sitting there betraying us in the military, they took an oath. You pastors took an oath too. And you've betrayed it. You state representatives, you state senators, you've taken an oath. And you betrayed it. And there ain't nothing worse than a traitor. Nothing. When this country, if it ever actually gets restored, and I have my doubts, what are you all going to do? What are you all going to do who have been selling us down the river, betraying us, cutting our throats, cheating us, robbing us, lying to us all this time? You going to take your millions and crawl into a hole somewhere? Going to take your millions and leave the country? Going to sell your fancy little houses and your fancy little cars? Move somewhere else? If you're willing to sell out your nation, and sell out your own family, because you know something? The truth is, you Congress people out there, you have children. And they're going to have children. And not all of their children, not all of your grandchildren, are going to go to fine schools. They're not all going to have government jobs. Some of them are going to be down here with the rest of us peon peasants. The rest of us livestock. And you're setting the future for them as well as us. So not only are you a traitor to your country, not only are you a traitor to your faith, but you're a traitor to your own family. And there's nothing more reprehensible than that. You know, there's a passage I remember from the Bible, and I'm not enough of a scholar to quote it, but it says, basically, what father, when asked by his son for a loaf of bread, would give him a stone or a snake? And all of you who are in positions of authority and positions of power, who are making these decisions which are the ruination of all of us, including your own progeny, you better ask yourself that question. You know, I'm not a person who you know believes in the traditional comic book lake of fire. But for people like you, I sure wish there was one. That's the truth. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there is. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I can't think of any people more deserving. I really can't. America, arise and be counted. Be fearless. Be fierce. Be courageous. And speak. Speak out. Even when your voice quakes with fear. Especially if your voice quakes with fear. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this Operation American Spring. Because almost daily now, I'm at the point where I'm beginning to think that there's a combination of things that are going to be used to take this country back. And I'm believing almost more every day that this is one of them. Maybe the only one. It has to be used in combination with things like the pact. Because at the end of the day, even if we take the country back, we have to reestablish the rules and a rule of law. And that's going to mean that the next crop going in there, we can't let them dance in the poison, swim in the pool of poison. We'll be right back. All right. We're back. Well, I sound a little morose today, huh? Well, that's because I'm feeling that way. You know, the amount of time and effort that I put into educating myself so that I can talk to you about some of the things that I talk about. And you know, share that education and that knowledge. There's a personal cost to that. You know, it's not easy to know all the things I know and, you know, look forward with any sense of hope in the future. Very difficult. I do have the confidence level that we can turn this around, but I got to tell you, I think we're going to go through a very, very difficult period between then and now, and I'm fearful of that. I'm not fearful for my own safety and security and all of that. I mean, you know, you've heard me say it before. If you're a long-time listener, you know, I've lived a pretty amazing life. I've done a lot of things that, and I guess a lot of people wish they'd done, right? I've worked in great large corporations. I've had wonderful jobs. I have had businesses. I've run businesses. I still have one, a couple of them actually. I've traveled around the world. I've seen a lot of things. I've met a lot of great people. I've loved. I've been loved. I've done all those things that young men and young women, you know, desire to do with their lives. So, it's not like I sit here and say, you know, I've got regrets that I can't go back in time or you know, I fear for my own life because, it could end at any moment. I don't know why anybody would think that way. In fact, I think that whole idea that's pumped into our minds from earliest onset that fear death is stupid. It's propagandic because it's meant to make you fearful so that you can be manipulated. Churches do it too. Not just government. It's not just society. But, Patrick Henry, he said to us that what is it that we wish for, right? I mean, would we give up our liberty and freedom for the price of chains? I don't understand. I guess I find it extraordinarily frustrating that Americans don't either seem to want to understand what's happening, or they prefer to be self-delusional. I mean, I don't think anybody can sit here and look at our circumstance right here, right now, and not feel like, wow, we are literally at the edge of of catastrophe. I found the quote because I love this quote. It's Patrick Henry, by the way. I've forgotten did I say Thomas Paine? I meant Patrick Henry. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Before I tell you what this quote is, you've heard it before, but I'm going to read it to you again. But I want you to understand the context of this. These men are in a meeting, and they are talking about what to do next. Clearly, the British Army has been, committing atrocities and killing innocent people, raping and pillaging. I mean, literally through the countryside now for quite some time. And these guys are standing there and they're saying, and there's the peaceniks who are standing there, and make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, even in the days of the Revolutionary War, there were the peaceniks. Well, let's negotiate a peace. And Henry stood up because he was frustrated. He stood up because he said, it is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. In other words, to continue to just throw this banter about. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace. But there's no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would you all have? Is your life so dear or your peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I don't know what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. You know, we read that, and I've read that quote hundreds of times. Because it's a quote that expresses the same level of frustration. And you know I read it dramatically. But most of the time we read it like, it is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Let me tell you something. If you think for a moment that Patrick Henry stood there and he read that or stated that, made that statement, if you think he stood in the middle of a public house and he did not put all of his emotion and his frustration and his fear for his country and his brethren and his countrymen, if you think for a minute that he just stood there and he read that like in some monotone drone, or he made that statement without emphasis, without passion, then you see history in black and white. And you are truly blind of color. Not colorblind. You are blind of color. I can imagine it in my mind. Some guy stands up and he says, but we should negotiate the peace. And he's sitting there in his pew or on a bench, and he's listening to this argument go back and forth. Somebody stands up and says, we can't sue for peace. We've got to take action. They're raping our families and burning our farms, and they're destroying our businesses. They're stealing our food, and winter is coming. And he finally stands up. He says, it is in vain to extenuate these matters. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. Look around us. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps down from the north, it's going to bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms, of gunfire. Our brethren are already fighting in the field. And you want to cry peace.
So why stand we here idle? They're bleeding and dying. What is it that the rest of you gentlemen wish? What is it that you would all have? Is your life so dear or your peace so sweet? Is that farm you think you've got possession of? Is that car, that job, that vacation home, that boat, that toy, this personal tracking device sponsored and issued to you by the company that is in the country that is trying to destroy you, is that so dear to you? Is all of that failure to face confrontation so sweet that you would purchase it at the price of chains and slavery for you and your family and the rest of us? I ask you, how do we wake up in the morning and not recognize the truth? It's so obvious. Helen Keller could see it. Stevie Wonder can see it. How can we not? You think the situation is so different now than it was then? No, I'll tell you where the difference is. This crew we're dealing with is a little bit sneakier. They're staging their military materials in our towns and our cities. They're training our own countrymen to go to war against us. What is it that you have that is so dear and so sweet that you are willing to sacrifice that and live in abject slavery? To be told what to do and what to think and what to eat and where to go and how to do it and when to do it, who you can talk to, who you can't talk to, how you should say things. You live in fear, constantly looking over your shoulder, looking up, cowering, waiting for the hammer to constantly fall. The war has actually begun. How do I know that? I mean, look around you. Look at all the stories out there. Police kick in the door and shoot some guy, and they find out they're in the wrong house. Well, no wonder he entered no wonder he came out of his bedroom with a shotgun. Somebody kicks in his door, and they're in black suits with balaclavas over their face. The hell would you think? He's not suspecting that the police are going to kick in his door, and he's not even in the right house. You say, oh, that's an isolated incident. That's not an isolated incident. There's hundreds of those that happen every year. Hundreds. We are at war. The clash of resounding arms, ladies and gentlemen, is here. What do we do? What do we do? Can't just ignore it. Well, there's people out there who are looking to make a difference. Operation American Spring. That's the title of this. We're 20 minutes into this segment or 15 minutes into this segment, and I haven't even mentioned it. You've heard me talk about it before, though. The military and the intelligence officials are requesting patriots to help remove the criminals in government. Did you just hear what I said? A military and intelligence-sponsored group is actually saying, I'm going to tell you what they're saying. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps down from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why are we standing here idle? May 16th. I want 10 million people to go to Washington, D.C. The American Spring, not the Arab Spring. The American Spring. Not armed, but undeniable. Not violent, but with unrelenting force. Listen, there's all the time in the world. If violence breaks out, there's all the time in the world for that, and believe me, that's not a time we want to arrive. It's not a time that we can afford. It's not something we can have. But we do have an opportunity right now to make a difference, to take the country back. I wrote that plan, the plan to take back America, place all state and federal capitals under civil disobedience siege. I'm looking at it. I posted it on April 11th of 2011. I'm sorry, I updated it in April 11, 2013. I posted it back in 2011. It's had 100,000 people have seen it. 100,000. You know what the last quote is? And it goes hand in hand with Patrick Henry's plea. And the plea of these men in the military and intelligence communities who are coming forth and saying, we're in the field of battle. Will you help us? Winston Churchill. Sitting there. The story behind this, and I don't have the time for the whole story, but the story behind this quote, you know, his own country had appeased and appeased and appeased and appeased and appeased Germany over and over and over. Constantly cowering to the demands. Just like we are allowing ourselves to put up with the tyranny and usurpation of everything that we have believed in and known and built our lives and our country upon. And it became apparent to him that, hey, you know, after all of that appeasement of the bully, he's actually escalated his efforts. And now he's not picking on those guys over there anymore. Now he's picking on us. He's coming here. And he turned around and he put out a message to his own people and he said, still, if you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than live as slaves. If you won't fight for this, when we have the opportunity to do this easily, without bloodshed, if you will not stand up and say, I'm willing to put it on the line, because frankly, if we lose our freedom and our liberty, it's not worth anything anyway. What is it that gentlemen wish? What would you have? What do you have that is so wonderful that you're willing to give up your freedom and your liberty for the price of chains and slavery? If you won't fight when your victory will be sure, and it will be sure, this is our country. There's 10 million of us that are going to go to Washington, D.C. And hey, listen, folks, not for nothing, there's only about 3,000 of them total that have to be ousted. And that includes the heads of all the administrative agencies and all the rest of that. We can really clean house later. But if you're not going to fight when your victory is sure, what are you going to do when it comes to the time when you are forced to fight? When the bully is through everybody else and he's standing right in front of your face. Now you've come to the moment when the odds are against you. And you only have a precarious chance of surviving. You waited silently while he waded through the bodies and the blood of everybody around you. And now he's come to you. Didn't you have a better chance of survival then, while there were 10, 20, 30 of you? But you cowered in fear and watched as he cut his way through, and now he's finally to you. Now what? You going to fight, or are you going to close your eyes and bare your neck? I don't care how slim my chances are. In that circumstance, baby, it's on. I may be unarmed, I may be handcuffed, and he may be holding a sharp sword, but I'm telling you, I'll use my teeth, my feet, whatever. Look at this Operation American Spring. Prepare yourself and your family. It's not going to be a short-term thing. It's going to take time. Can't just be a one day, we're going to go to Washington for a lark. No. We're going to stay there until we take this thing back. Or we're going to bare our neck. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.